Hello and welcome to another edition of Cheers PA Beer Talk, where we sit down and talk to some of the best and brightest minds that this state's brewing and beverage industry has to offer. And we are very lucky to have our guest today. We are honored to be joined by Megan, the production manager for North Country Brewing Company in Slippery Rock, PA. Megan is just amazing. So I'm really excited. I could spend a lot of time just pouring over with the compliments, but I think it's better to just say you're amazing and then just show the people what I think.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very excited to be talking to you.
We're grateful.
Hannah and Melissa said nice things. So
well, I had to work my way up the ladder. You're like top of the chain for the Breweries of Pennsylvania's Equity and Inclusion Committee, but everyone that I've talked to on the way up this wonderful ladder has been just so complimentary. So I'm really excited to get your perspective on a lot of things and don't want to waste any time. First question we ask everyone, pretty basic. What is the beer or the beer story that got you interested in craft beer or made you want to be in this industry? Do you have a story that goes along with that memory?
Yeah, when I was thinking of that, I have a couple that I'd want to share because I grew up in Western New York, so Southern Tier was literally in my backyard, and that was the first brewery that I worked for. So their IPA was probably one of the first beers that truly got me into craft beer because it was right there, and I had friends working for the brewery, and it also, I think, in a slight way, was oh, the first beer that I'm into is an IPA and it's super bitter. This is uber badass. But when it's part of my whole journey. At one point I was living in Oregon, but right before I moved back, this is also one of these other pinnacle beer moments for me. I volunteered for the Portland Holiday Ale Festival.
Whoa.
And part of it is it's pretty much ran by volunteers, but you then get to drink at the next session. And I had this experience. I was there with a couple friends, and they brought me up a sample of Firestone Walker's Velvet Merkin, as well as just this delicious cheese. And I just remember that experience being I want to make beer like this. That's it. It was just so velvety and smooth, and just the combination just has stuck with me literally since 2011 when that experience happened. So.
It's amazing those a beer with that richness and complexity. Do you remember what kind of cheese it was? I imagine it was something that had a little bit of funk to it and a slight twang that really just played nice within the sweetness.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific cheese, but I remember it being a little bit smoother, but definitely was just, it's almost rich is what I remember a little bit, so.
Very cool. So I heard a story about, how you got into this industry because you were originally a home brewer. Is that correct? So you did you start working at a brewery and then develop the home brewing habit? Because it can go either way from my experience.
So I haven't homebrewed a lot, so I should say that, but homebrewing is what got me interested in craft beer in the first place. I grew up, again, in Western New York. I had a friend who took me to a homebrewing meeting, and just being able to experience the camaraderie and the exchange of knowledge, it just felt like a very enriching environment to be around. And I loved the social aspect of it, and the group of people that were just really welcoming. At that point too, it was just, again, a lot of old white dudes, but they were just very kind and welcoming and made me feel really comfortable when I was asking what I thought were really stupid questions. So that was really the first step into it. And then I have subsequent stories of other homebrewing experiences where the first time we homebrewed, we didn't have all the equipment we needed at all. And we decided we were going to make a coconut porter. And so we wanted to make it super authentic. So we bought an actual coconut, but had no means to open it up. So we were literally just using whatever we could to try to bust this thing open. And we did it. But the last part is we also didn't have anything to chill the wort down. But again, being in Western New York in the middle of winter, we went outside and gathered all the snow into this bucket and just put the pot in there, just kept doing that. And it's just thinking of amazingly terrible experiences like that are just great memories too. So.
But I mean, that's the thing about homebrewing that I always enjoyed. It's just like the camaraderie and I got to figure out a way to get this done because I've started this process and I've invested all of this time. So it's great to see that I'm not the only one that struggles to greatness sometimes. I heard you mention old white guys. I'm imagining in your journey to where you are today, you've experienced a lot of old white guys. This industry used to be heavily populated. And I guess the question I want to know is, along the way, you said that they were helpful, answering your questions. As the community started to balance out and you started to see more female brewers, or as I like to call them, just brewers, entering into the fold, what was it like? Was there a threatening from, the shift, or did you always feel like the camaraderie and where you were at as you continued to grow and evolve in the ever-changing landscape of the brewing industry?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the evolution, I think, has been pretty quick. So when I moved down to Pittsburgh in 2012, I was literally the first female brewer in this county ever to exist. And so, but when I moved here, I wanted to be around more women. I wanted to find people that I could share this with that were female identifying. And so there wasn't much. So there was this Pittsburgh beer ladies group, but they were more educational, social drinking type group, and they're great. And then that kind of evolved into starting a Pink Boots chapter here. And that then allowed me to start meeting women owners, sales reps. There's also a company called Stewards of Beer, and Brooke and Lee, they operate that. And it was at a different point, but they've always kind of been around in the fold and are now doing a lot of great stuff for craft beer here in Pittsburgh. But I'm trying to think of, it never felt threatening, and I never even thought of it that way either. It was just something I felt necessary to do as well, try to keep bringing women together through the yearly collaborations. And then eventually was able to hire a female at one of the breweries I worked at, and just always trying to bring more people in, because I would be approached all the time via some sort of messenger, or someone would see me at a festival and they would ask how do I do this? And then I'd be like, okay, here's everything that I think you could try. And if I hear of anything, I will throw it your way. And so knowing that people had the desire, and I wanted to kind of maintain this approachability is really what it is. I wanted to make sure other women felt like I could be there for them and basically be what I always wanted to have.
That's really interesting, because I heard you talk on your podcast, Pursuit of Unhappiness, which is amazing. If you're hearing this and you haven't heard of that, you should check it out. Pursuit of Unhappiness on Spotify and other places. All right, I'm done with the promotion for that one. But it's really good, so it's worth it.
Thank you.
But you were talking about mentors, and to me, from what I heard there, you were talking about, who might be your mentors, but it sounds like you've been a mentor for a lot of people along the way, and trying to with that approachability. Is that fair to say? And do you treasure that role, or is it sometimes overwhelming?
I think when going back to touching what I just was saying too, having been the only female brewer here, I did feel this level of responsibility to try to keep doing what I was doing. But at the same time, I mean, it definitely is overwhelming when you try to take responsibility for things that really are outside of your control. But as far as, I don't know if I would, there might be people out there that would say that I was a mentor, but I think in general, I think just trying to be part of the community regularly and be available. I don't know if I would say I was an exact mentor for people, but I definitely always tried to be there for people and be available to ask questions.
Well, I completely understand why you would be sought out. And, the responsibility part, that's a hard one to carry. And it seems like that was not a burden to you, but more of something that you almost relished, in that you saw your purpose in that place and in that time to do something. And you see now what's grown from it. So I think that it makes sense why you were recently elected to the board. You're on the actual board of the Breweries of Pennsylvania, as well as the co-chair of the Committee for Equity and Inclusion.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How has it been getting involved in more of that responsibility that you were talking about, but just at the next level within the state?
It was really cool. So it happened around a time where I think I needed something. It was like in 2019. I was going through a divorce, and everything that I was doing leading up to there, I felt like kind of just I lost. I had no purpose, and I was approached by Brandolyn Armstrong, who's now at Upper Ridge Meadery, but she was the one who initially started the committee, and she just called me one day and was like, "Hey, I want to do this. Would you want to be part of it?" And I pretty much said without hesitation, yes, because and like then it started getting the wheels spinning again. Like, okay, if I can put more energy into this, it still kind of makes me feel like I'm doing something and I'm gaining my purpose back a little bit. And so it's been really cool to watch it evolve. And I mean, nothing when it comes to equity and inclusion happens quickly. So it's been really nice to still work on projects, over the last like 2.5 years that we've been doing the committee.
Yeah, and one of the projects that I've really enjoyed, to me, I guess because it's more public facing than I'm sure a lot of the other work that you're doing, behind the scenes and within the industry, working with the individual brewers on just how to be better.
Mhm.
But the MASH, this video series and this interview series, I love the way that it comes together with the different perspectives of the committee members. Do you have an idea of who's going to talk to who, or is it really just left up to the members to say, go find something interesting and let's make it for this month?
It's a little bit of column A, column B. Like when we started doing it, we collectively tried to figure out, who could we have on the show, and um, there were people were like, no, I really want to talk to this person. Like when I interviewed Ren, I really wanted to talk to her personally. I was like so excited about the work she's doing, and so that's kind of like how that worked and whatnot.
Yeah, Ren Navarro, it's a
Mm.
tremendous interview. Is that only available through the link on the Brewers of Pennsylvania website, or is there somewhere that people can find that? Because it's such an impactful interview to just hear her perspective on things. And I don't want to say that you were gushing and fangirling a little bit, but like your energy was just like, but it was great because it really, I think, made her comfortable and brought out a really interesting side to like more personal side of something that, people may know her from her work, but maybe don't see that side of her because of, what her work is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it definitely through the link through Brewers of PA. I think they have it streamed through YouTube, but we also have an Instagram page called Beer for Change PA, and so we upload all of them there. I think it would probably be advantageous if we actually like stripped the audio and put it in like a podcast form because it definitely can work that way as well. It's not just necessarily only applicable on video.
Definitely. And I think too, when you get into that, it's more packageable. And I think that having watched a couple of them, you don't need the video. There's very little in their own reference. And then this chart I have over here, as you can see, like, like it's a very just like one-to-one conversation that's really important. And just, it's nice to hear the different perspectives.
Yeah, really. It really is. It's been really cool. And I think I've learned a lot just from hearing each one of them as well. Like the first one that Hannah did with, why am I forgetting? I have such a bad memory, but
Kelly.
it was, yes,
Kelly
Kelly,
from Paracoman.
and
Yeah.
yes. And talking about ableism and just like what she's doing in her brewery, literally mind-blowing stuff that I never have thought about. And I think that's really important to hear those conversations. And, the goal really being to try to create like usable, like teach people like different and like about what other people are doing, but also really usable like things that they can just try to apply to their brewery. And didn't want it to be something that would like scare people. I wanted them to feel almost like comfortable. And I think maybe that's why I liked the videos, so that they actually get to see people. They're not just hearing something, and it can kind of break down the walls a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you've got this comforting space that really allows a great conversation to happen. So it translates, I think, as an end product, but absolutely as a video. First off, just to have that engagement and really see the two people interact, it's just really well put together. Is that something that's going to continue into next year, or is it kind of a limited run?
It's going to continue. We kind of got to a point where we were all busy and ran out of guests, and we're like, okay, let's get back to this. But we're going to do some recording at the BOP Symposium this weekend. So I'm going to bring basically all my recording equipment, and we're just going to do something.
I cannot wait to see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So kind of a different direction to go, but I also heard that you recently moved into a camper and are living a minimal life. I think
Yeah.
that the part that stood out to me was that you wanted to simplify to really find what's important to you. I
Hmm.
went through a similar thing when I moved to Chicago and got rid of all of my stuff. And I think that what really stuck with me, though, is when you were talking about just the negativity that you got from people who just don't understand that. And
Hmm.
how has this experience helped you grow as a person, but also as, you know, a manager of people and as an advocate in this industry? How has it helped you find your voice through all of this?
I mean, I feel like it's generally a bigger conversation, and it all stems down like the camper thing. I think is just a piece of the puzzle that
Sure.
more so goes back to me on this journey to like love myself and learn how to create boundaries around me to ensure that I'm being the best person I possibly could be, and um, being as present as I could be. So I think part of simplifying my life in the camper situation, it it basically took away me thinking that I needed things to be happy, or I needed a physical space to be happy, that I could have the things that I care about around me. Like right before I was mentioning that, I made sure I had my records with me and my record player, and I had like a comfortable with a TV so I could watch spooky movies because that's like a big thing for me too. So I
Spooky
made
season.
yes. Well, spooky season's all year for me. So
Happy spooky season for the partial practicers, and just call this Thursday for you.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Um, and so, being able to focus on that, that was a big thing. And then after being in the space, I think it really challenged the norms of how I lived. Doing the dishes isn't normal. Cooking isn't normal. It's a little bit takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit more involved, And then I have a small space, so I have to be able to utilize my space like very strategically, and that's kind of grown and changed since I moved in. But yeah, so being able to challenge like how I thought I should live or how I needed to live, I think was a big thing. And like even as simple as I live in a campground that shuts down for part of the year. So, and they like just shut down the bathroom that was literally right next to my house. And I'm like freaking out for a minute, like thinking, oh my God, this is just such a complication. I can't do this anymore. Having that internal battle and then just being like, Megan, calm down. You just have to drive 2 minutes to go to another space. You know what I mean? Like simple things like that that made me realize that like I could being reactive versus responding to a challenge, and I think that is even a theme that can apply to my entire job as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Something that really stuck with me was just what you were talking about, changing the way that you thought you needed to live. And I feel
mhm,
like a lot of us went through that through the pandemic and just the things that have happened along that time, both at a macro level, worldwide, nationwide, but also within the brewing industry. And, the craft beer reckoning of May is just, it's something that I worried was going to get washed out, just like every other thing
mhm,
that seems to come up. And then people get overwhelmed with caring, and just there's just no sustainability to care. It seems like that no
mhm,
one has the humanity at a macro level to really carry that. But you saw recently that McKellar and their beer festival lost some high profile, and you're seeing still the ripples of
mhm.
what happened there. It gives me hope that there's a possibility of sustainability to this. Would you say that that is a good sign for carrying this cause on? And how can we, with all of our platforms, really push for this communication to keep up?
Yeah. Uh, that's a really hard question to answer, but I'm going to try to
So,
do my best
sorry.
here. No, no, it was a great question. Because a couple things, these are things that I'm asking myself, even doing equity and inclusion work. I just recently reached out to Laura Ulrich from Stone Brewing Company, and I was talking to her. I'm like, how do you stay like not motivated isn't the right word because I feel like it's not a lack of motivation, but you maintain the energy to keep trying when you're constantly getting pushback from people or seeing other people not care. And that can get really defeating at times. And I definitely experienced that through being on the equity inclusion committee, but somehow like it's like that end goal of like knowing that we can impact change in the long run and do little things to protect people, like those are like little bits that like kind of kept me going. But as far as the sustainability of it, I think my hope is that every single person can understand that the only like it's not going to be one person changing the entire industry. It's just not. Brienne's doing amazing things, and I know she will continue to do amazing things, but it's not just her. It's each individual one of us that is doing our part to recognize what impact we are having and how that may negatively impact someone, or maybe even how it positively could impact someone. And I think that's what's going to slowly keep growing, is that we're going to continue to see people recognize what is right and what is wrong and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And so though I don't think right now it's very loud, like people aren't talking about this as much as I would hope that they would be, but I still think we're seeing those small little pieces that I think we should just hold on and like be happy that we're seeing them, and just kind of keep seeing them.
Can I posit two theories? I believe personally, one, that it's possible here, specifically in beer, because you have a community that cares. And so now that the conversation and the lights are on, like there's no reason that people who for a long time maybe were like, should I say something? It's open door to say, we are drawing a line here. We're creating boundaries that no longer are certain things allowed that we just kind of swept under the rug. The other thing that I think is really hopeful is the great reporting. I'm going to butcher the last name because it's that T. Is it a hard T? Is it a soft T? But Kate Bernot or Bernat for Good Beer Hunting is doing actual journalism. And you don't see real journalism at the level in society that we used to have that really held people accountable. So my hope is that with powerful, her piece really helped push that last little bit with McKellar to say, all right, we need to actually handle this. It's not just some internet chatter that we think is going to go away. Like, this is real. And I hope that those two things can really help carry this on. But, like you said, it's incremental and no change is going to happen immediately, but we're slowly moving the boundaries out further and further. And I just think that as we continue to push against the norms of the way that people always thought we had to live, I think we can really find some great space to explore for everyone and just create more room for everyone.
I totally agree. And I think the other piece that comes to mind is that when it comes to this stuff, it makes people feel uncomfortable. It makes people like start feeling maybe like they're blamed or like they're doing something wrong. And that can make people push back so hard. And so I at least recognize that, where it's like by trying to have really good deep conversations and hard conversations regularly and try to maybe normalize, like, so the more people see this being talked about, the more that they're going to feel comfortable around it. So I think like it's just one of those things that has to kind of keep happening, and hopefully that'll make more people feel comfortable recognizing what their piece in this whole like world is.
You just have to consider where and the whole point of privilege being the absence of impediments. It's just like, okay, we're not saying that privilege, no one's accusing anyone by saying the word privilege. It's just like, you might not have an impediment that other people have. And we're just asking to acknowledge that that may be different for other people. And from that, just thinking, maybe we can have a conversation. That's all that that's always been my approach. And you're right. Sometimes just the recoil has been enlightening, I'll put it, and just kind of leave it at that. But
yeah, and I think Hannah said a really good thing on her episode with you about listening. I can't echo that enough.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing that I also really enjoyed was just, you making boundaries within your role at North Country, and just kind of how, professionally you were adapting boundaries as personally, and you were kind of going through that growth phase. How has the process unfolded for you? And do you really think that the creating of the boundaries has empowered you to be your better self? Or is it like every day you have to keep working to maintain what you've, the gains that you have already?
I really look at life and a lot of these little pieces that we're talking about as it's all practice, and you're not going to be perfect every day. But it's like those little moments that you see that you like go in the right direction, or you make the right decision, or you tell someone that, hey, I don't think we can talk anymore because it's not healthy for me to interact with you. I think those are the ones that like you have to celebrate. And yeah, it's like definitely just a daily thing. I think I always have to be conscious of it, and because there will be like exceptions that I have to make, and that might like push me past where I normally would let someone go, but it's like for the right reason. And then there's other times where I have to just put my foot down and say, nope, this is not okay. And you feeling okay isn't worth more than my own happiness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think that having the ability to say no to people and not do it in a vindictive way, but just, this is just a no, and it being okay is something that, as I've grown and matured into an adult, it was something that was a really hard lesson for me, because I had not had, I just say yes to everything and just kind of figure it out. And it got to a point where it's like, I can't keep doing this over and over, because I am having, internal conflict that is just impossible to resolve.
Yeah, I definitely have this side that I've been working on for probably at least a few years. And like, I can sometimes go into caretaker mode where I just want to help people. And, I do it in my personal relationships. I do it in professional relationships. And what it sometimes does is make me extend more of myself. And not that there should always be this like value proposition or this exchange of energy, but when nothing is matching and you're constantly just like giving and then nothing's even meeting you halfway, it's very tiring. It can really weigh on your mental health. And that was one of the big things that, even just back in May, I was calling it mama bear mode, where I was just like, I need to protect all my ladies. Like, come here. I want to come to my bosom. Like, I got you, and so just trying to find any way possible to help. But I was recognizing I was not even acknowledging what I have gone through and like what I've experienced. And, and so that was pretty big to at least know that I needed to take a break.
Yes. And knowing when it's okay to take a break and allowing yourself to take a break and not punishing yourself for taking a break is so hard to learn. But when you get there, it's so freeing. And it's not always possible. Sometimes you'll still slip into those habits, but it is a goal that I often grow towards, but that's what goals are for.
Yeah.
So one last question. I know that you're with North Country Brewing. It's a family-owned operation. What's it been like working in that environment? It seems like they not only appreciate you as, production manager, but also your voice. I mean, you're out there speaking on a lot of things and you're wearing the colors and the logo. Like, they are proud to have your voice attached to their brewery. How empowering has that been?
It's been an amazing experience because even just going back as far as like when I was approached to do this job, it was like at a point where I was just trying to be as present as possible in life. They approached me, and like getting to learn a little bit more about even thinking about how communal and community forward this company is. It like speaks really close to just like what I fell in love with the industry. And then not to mention, we're a brewery that I want to say at least 95% of our management is female. And I think that's pretty exciting, but it's basically created a space where I don't feel scared to say what I think and share my ideas. And so that's been really empowering to be able to be part of that and like know that this environment can exist.
That is amazing to hear you say that. Looking at the bios of people, it seems like even the men have been there for a long time. Like, it just seems like it's a place where people come and they buy in and they've like grown up around that. But this state is better off when you're in an environment that you feel comfortable to speak, because the things that you've been saying since I've become aware of what you've been doing, I'm blown away. So I can't wait to see where the future takes you. And I'm so grateful to have your voice, at least for now, in the state of Pennsylvania and working towards change here. I know that you have a love for the Pacific Northwest. I mean, who doesn't? Bend, Oregon. If Bend is like the craziest place. Like, there's a desert in the middle of a state that I always thought was just cold and rainy all the time because I grew up in the South, and they're like, oh yeah, that place up there just rains all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if you listen to my first couple episodes of Pursuit of Happiness, but I had to say I think I said at least probably 10 times how much I loved Oregon. And
you were just, weren't you there during it's hard when you're out there, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. I was kind of into how can I just move here? No, my family will kill us. We already live in Chicago. No, it's
yeah, it's so beautiful there. I literally feel like home. It's like a second home to me at this point.
Wonderful. Well, I am so grateful for your time today. Before we get out of here, let people know where they can find out about North Country and the beer, and more so the important work that you're doing. If you want to plug the podcast, please.
Yeah, so first, because you can get to a lot of things I do, my Instagram handle's Megan from the Black Lagoon. We have Beer for Change PA. Yes, I do a lot of spooky stuff. So on the side, I have a horror and beer podcast as well. Yeah, so Beer for Change PA. Also, that's the Equity and Inclusion Committee. And then anywhere on any platform, really, North Country Brewing, you'll be able to find the canning facility. And that's where you'll see a lot of the brewing work that we're doing, and can watch me stain coffins like I was before this. So.
That's great. Well, thank you, Megan. I apologize. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a wonderful conversation, and like I said, just can't wait to see where everything goes from here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And now we're going to get to the beer of the month. This month, with it being, as we were alluding to earlier, a little bit of spooky season, we're going to showcase Yuengling's Hershey Porter. Chocolate and beer. It's a porter collaboration from two of Pennsylvania's most historic brands. It's seasonally available. It's a play on their 200-year-old dark porter recipe. So lighter body than you expect from a porter, but I think that's because of the Hershey chocolate really accentuating the malt structure, and it allows it to play nicely in there without it being cloyingly and overpoweringly sweet. So only available for a limited time. You're going to want to look for this now. And if you're hearing this too late, I'm sorry, wait till next year. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more of our conversations like this from Cheers PA anywhere you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, follow, put us in your will, whatever your level of commitment may be. Thanks again to our illustrious guest, Megan, and our friends at Wise Markets who make this show possible. Until next time, cheers, PA.